Hey guys, video 12 for the post-trib pre-wrath rapture position. In the last video I talked about the origins of the pre-trib rapture. Well, I can't really tell you the origin of the post-trib rapture because Jesus said in Matthew 24 verse 29 through 31 that immediately after the tribulation that he would come back and gather together his elect. So Jesus taught it. So I guess if you want to have the origin would be from Jesus. But the early church, even the writings of people like Irenaeus in 130 AD and Hippolytus in 235 AD wrote very clearly in their writings that the rapture would happen after the tribulation and that we, the church, the saints, would face the Antichrist. In Irenaeus' book Against Heresies, his exact quote was this, speaking of the Antichrist, "His tyranny shall last 3 years and 6 months, during which the saints will be put to flight." Now that's chapter 25:4. Later in the same book, he said the resurrection of the just takes place after the coming of the Antichrist. That's chapter 35 in the first part. Hippolytus, in his commentary on the book of Daniel, speaking of the Antichrist, it says, when he had conquered all, he will prove himself a terrible and savage tyrant and will cause tribulation and persecution to the saints. And Justin Martyr, and this is 100 AD, he lived from 100 to 167 AD, and he actually lived near the time of the Apostle John, which obviously wrote the book of the Revelation. We believe John, if he died, which I have a whole study on that, died around 100 AD. But basically, he taught that the man of apostasy, the Antichrist, shall venture to do unlawful deeds on the earth against us, the Christians. So he clearly says that we're going to face the Antichrist. And Irenaeus also said this, that he would put the church to flight, speaking of the Antichrist. Also, that he, the Antichrist, that this man, when this man comes, that hopefully we may avoid him. And this is against heresies in chapter 5, in reference 30. Tertullian, he lived from 150 to 220 AD. He attached the rapture of 1 Thessalonians 4 to the start of Christ's millennial kingdom on earth. Tertullian said the tribulation would be such that the beast, the Antichrist, with his false prophet may wage war, specifically saying, on the church of God. This is on his book on the resurrection of the flesh, chapter 25. And then finally, Cyprian, and he lived from 200 to 260 AD, he writes this, "Nor let any of you, beloved brethren, be terrified by the fear of future persecution, by the coming of the threatening Antichrist." And he wrote this in Epistle 55 and 7. "And we will do well to take Cyprian's advice. Since, listen, the church, the early people from 100 AD, 200 AD, 150 AD, some of these guys wrote in their books, this is writings that you can pick up online, that's where I found them, that they were clearly writing that we would face the Antichrist. And the only writing that anybody could find was by pseudo-Ephraim, which they don't even know what pseudo-Ephraim wasn't even the real guy. It was somebody that was confirmed that was not Ephraim, therefore calling him pseudo-Ephraim and not knowing who the real writer was. And it's a very vague reference to some sort of Christ keeping us from the Antichrist, or making it to where we don't have to go through tribulation. And there is no provable evidence of anybody teaching a pre-tribulation rapture before the 1800s.